I don't think I need to explain how important glue is to woodworking. Without it, we'd either need to use complicated interlocking joints like dovetails or some kind of mechanical fasteners like screws or nails. At one point, we rendered something known as collagen from animal skins and hoofs. After it was dried, water would need to be added to it, and it would need to be heated up and stay at an optimal temperature for use. Unfortunately, a warm environment could cause the glue to become tacky again. By 1912, a German chemist named Fritz Klate discovered polyvinyl acetate, or PVA glue. With this new creation came an easier way to bond stock together, virtually eliminating the preparation the previous glue needed. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 glue tips that I use. I've indexed each of the tips so that you can easily move on if you've already seen the tip. I've also got links you'll find in the description that go along with the tips in the video. Let's get started. I switched to GlueBot, but got tired of dried glue clogging the high-tech vessel. Then I went back to the original glue bottle and remembered why I went with the GlueBot. Dried glue. So irritating. But why is it happening? The same process we use to glue two pieces of wood together can happen in the inside of our glue bottle. If we allow the top of our glue bottle to be separated by air from the glue sitting at the bottom, exposed glue in the cap will dry and we'll be left with dried glue problems. To fix this, drill a hole in a 2x4 and store your glue bottle upside down. This will make it difficult for the glue to dry out, but there's still one more problem. The tip can glue shut no matter how hard we try to keep it clean. The solution? Make a glue prybar and lift up. It works every time without fail. If glue does dry out inside the tip, flip the tool and easily scrape the glue out. I have a glue box design that stores your glue in an upright position and this simple glue prybar, complete with free step-by-step video instructions. I know I'm not the first person to discover this, but I'm sure others haven't given this much thought. Add toothpicks to your glue arsenal. Besides using them to add glue to tiny spaces, I've found so many uses for them in my garage. They make adding glue to thin glue-ups incredibly easy. They're great for filling spaces. They can be used to glue insets like this ruler and T-track. They're perfect for getting dye in hard-to-reach places. But my favorite? They're perfect for mixing epoxy as well as applying it. When I'm done, I leave the toothpick on the epoxy pool and wait for it to dry before peeling it clean. In a previous bite size, we drilled a hole for our upside down glue bottle. Drill a hole next to it and add these wonderful tools. You won't be sorry. Everybody's heard of silicone glue brushes at this point. Back in bite size number 8, I talked about buying cheap pie mats to use for glue ups. I briefly mentioned using muffin molds. If you're brushing on glue, you can't go wrong with these muffin molds. Pour your glue in and brush it on. When the adhesive is dried, peel the remaining dried glue and you're done. This works well with wood glue, Mod Podge, epoxy, and even Bondo. The best part about using this with glue is how easy it is to squeeze it back into the bottle. My favorite use with these, mixing epoxy in the inside and squeezing it out. It makes it easier to fill holes and it's a small, self-contained mess. I set it aside and clean it when it's cured. You can buy a dozen of these on the cheap and they last forever. Glue up time can be a hectic nightmare, especially if you're doing large, complicated projects. When time is critical, create a glue water jug. It's essentially a container of some kind with a wooden rod attached to the top. Before you open the glue bottle and start gluing, add water, get your glue brush ready, and throw in a rag. What I love about this is how easy it is to quickly grab a towel to clean up drips. With the water, I can quickly clean out the rag and keep going. Instead of tossing out the rag when you're done, wring it out in the water and hang it on the rod. And that glue brush, no more waiting for it to dry to peel off the boogers. I have a quick video I made showing how I quickly turned a milk jug into a glue jug. If you've ever glued layers of wood together, you know how frustrating and time-consuming it is to spread on glue. Sometimes you have the time to get it all on before the first part starts drying, sometimes you don't. Let me show you a fantastic tool I got from Amazon. It's a silicone squeegee, and you won't believe how easy it is to spread on glue. It doesn't matter how large the glue up is. With a quick swipe, I can glue up an entire section without worrying about glue drying prematurely. Because it's silicone, if I forget to clean it, the glue will easily peel off. But here's my favorite part of this particular squeegee. Previously, we talked about turning a milk jug into a glue water jug. Remember this wood rod? It's the perfect rod to hang the squeegee on after I've rinsed it off, making it harder to lose it when I'm done. No matter how many corners we cut to make glue ups faster, sometimes we just don't have enough time to get all the glue on all the surfaces that need gluing before the first part of our glue up starts drying. You could do your glue ups in smaller, more calculated ways, or you can use a trick that will give you more time. The moisture that goes into a glue up is very similar to the moisture that goes into bricklaying. Too little water in either will result in a less than ideal bond. To give yourself a little more time, grab a wet sponge and dampen the wood before you add glue. I like to add a hole to my sponge, cut a slit into it before hanging it from the dowel of my glue water jug. I don't lose it and it doesn't get lost in a mixture of glue sludge. Gluing layers together comes with a sliding problem. Glue, being naturally very slippery out of the bottle, has a tendency to cause wood layers to slide around, especially, I have noticed, after clamps are added. When I'm in the middle of a layered glue up, I use a trick that never fails to halt movement. Salt. Yes, that tasty food enhancer gets a good workout in my shop. I have never had a glue up fail in all the years I have used this method, but before you grab a salt shaker and start shaking, it's very important to understand that the amount you add is key. I start with a tiny pinch of salt and add a couple grains to the glue. You're looking not to create a sandpaper texture, but to add a slight bit of grit. The salt adds friction that makes both the top and bottom layer grip onto each other, counterbalancing the slippery nature of wood glue. Under a microscope, you can see how little salt I use. It really doesn't take that much. If you've ever cut a board and waited a few days before gluing it, you might not realize that the joint could be as much as 20% weaker than had you glued it immediately afterwards. That's because as soon as you cut the stock, the wood begins to degrade. Besides degradation, you're also battling against moisture and airborne particles. Here's a simple test that illustrates this point. Find a board that hasn't been cut in a while and add a drop of water to the top. The water will bead up and have a difficult time absorbing into the wood. This is bad as the wood needs to absorb part of the glue to get a good bond. The good news is that you don't have to cut your stock over again to get an optimal gluing surface. Instead, use a little bit of sandpaper and add a few swipes over the top. This is enough to open the wood up again and you're good to go. So let's test this on the same piece of wood from before. You can see with just a few swipes, the water is now absorbing into the wood. Now you're ready to add glue. Like it or not, there are times when you'll need to label something in your shop by using a piece of paper as a tag. If not a piece of paper, then a piece of painter's tape. With dust and oil in our shops, we're bound to have something on our hands, and our hands will eventually stain those labels. Back in number 25, we created tags with a printout for my website for screw containers. To protect those labels, you could add a couple pieces of tape over each label. There's a really quick way to add a clear, protective plastic coat over paper items. Mod Podge. Yes, that white, watered-down PVA glue that's used for so many different crafts easily covers and protects labels made from paper or from painter's tape. I'll grab a silicone brush and add a light coat over the top of each label. I've never needed to add a second coat, but you certainly can if you find your label needs it. Now with the protective plastic cover added, dirt and oil are more likely to wipe off. Grab a tube of Mod Podge from your local store. You'll be surprised by how inexpensive it is. Wood glue binds wood together, creating newly joined surfaces that are stronger than the wood itself. The biggest drawback to the yellow polyvinyl substance is the mess it leaves behind, which can affect stains and finishes. A wet rag is good at getting surface squeeze out, but where the joint comes together is where the frustration starts. To wipe away the glue in these tight areas, I've soaked towels and washed the areas out, taking a chance that I've watered down the glues in the joint. I take this precaution as I don't want to have to scrape the smeared glue out of the corner later on. But what if we can remove the glue without spreading it? I got a box of cheap straws for about $1, and I'll grab one and cut the corner off the end. I'll move in a couple inches and cut another angle, so I'm left with this parallelogram, which is perfect to scrape up the glue. By digging the point of the straw into the inside of the corner, I can shovel up the glue before it has a chance to spread on the surface. If there's any residue left behind, I can use a slightly damp rag to clean it up, and since I'm using a couple inches at a time, this box should last me the rest of my life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll have more of these combined tips in the near future. I want to thank my patrons for their support. Thank you Michelle B., Keith Current, William L McNally, Jerry Adams, Tommy QR, Zach Finch, Rich Lightfoot, and Tutor the Barbarian. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell. And I thank you so much for being a part of my shop. Please leave a comment below. Come find me on Instagram at Make Things with Rob. And remember to keep making things.
There's a flame that burns inside myself.